Hello, and welcome to Underneath the Hat podcast. I am your host, author, educator, entrepreneur, Cherie Simmons, and welcome to season 4 of Underneath the Hat. And our topic or theme this season has been Speak Over Yourself. So if you haven't done so already, subscribe and like our channel on YouTube. It's Underneath the Hat Podcast. You can check out all of the past episodes, all of the videos, all of the live streams. And you can also check us out on all of the podcast platforms: Anchor, Overcast, Spotify, Apple, Google, Breaker, and Pocket Cast. So check us out. Also, if it's something that I say that rings true or reminds you of somebody else, go ahead and share it with them. Also, be engaged. Post questions, even after you've watched the episode after it aired. Post the questions and I'll respond to them. You can also sew into the session through Cash App at $YLAAT 2017 or through Zelle at underneaththehat@gmail.com. All right, so for those that tuned in last week, I made a special announcement that the Lord has decided for me. And I think it's time, after not realizing it's been 4 years. November the 16th, 2018 is when I started doing this podcast on YouTube. And it's been 4 years a couple of weeks ago. And so God has decided that this will be my last season of doing my podcast of Underneath the Hat. And so we're going to go out with a bang. The last live episode will be March 18th. So I have a good 14 episodes, and I've already mapped out of how I'm going to go out and what I'm going to share and who some of my guests will be. And I'm excited to take these last 14 episodes and really leave a mark around the theme of speak over yourself. And so for this week's topic, I've actually decided to let you all know more about me, because even in 4 years, there are still things we can learn about each other, and we evolve as people. I am not the same person that started this podcast 4 years ago. My mindset is different. My emotions are different. My spirituality is different. My physical and mental state is different. And so no one stays the same. It actually reminds me of a conversation I was having with somebody a couple of days ago, talking about a family issue, and that people have a hard time accepting my boundaries now because they're so used to being able to talk to me and treat me any kind of way, and I would just take it. And I made the comment to that person of, I am not the same person that I was at 10, 12, 13 years old. And I think so often when we deal with certain people in our family, and we all have that one person where we say, oh, that's just how they are. We said that when we were 10, we said when we were 15, we said when we were 35, we said when we were 62. Oh, that's just how they are. But my thing is, why are you the same person acting the same way over 40 years? Why am I still saying at 22, that's just how they are, and I'm 42? That means in 20 years, you have not evolved. And I got a problem with that. And so I don't want people to think that I'm the same way, because I have evolved in the way that I think, the way that I move. I have boundaries now. I know how to set them. I understand my worth and my value. I don't hang around with people who cause me to have to lower my standards, or who drain my energy, or I'm not able to fulfill the capacity at which they're able to work within. And I have learned to not expect something from people that they can't give me. And so that's the biggest lie that we tell people is that's just how they are. Because when we say that, we're saying that you've not changed and evolved in however many years that we've been making that statement of that's just how they are. And those type of people you need to stay away from, because that means there's been no change, no growth at all. If every time they do something or say something, you respond with, that's just how they are. Now, this is way off my topic, but it kind of sort of ties in. So I decided for these last 14 episodes, or at least for the last 10 episodes, the next 10, I am going to share more about who I am through one of my favorite things, and that's music. One thing about me, for those that know me, I love music. I've been singing since I was 10 years old. I'm part of the Chicago Mass Choir. I've sang throughout my life in church. I've directed songs. I've led songs. I've been background singers in the choir. I just like to sing and I love music. And so I decided to share more about me by every episode for the next 10 weeks to be a song title, and for me to dive more into that song and how it's important to me and the evolution of Cherie and the podcast underneath the hat. So this week, the song that I chose is called Intentional by Travis Green. And the song is easy. I'll put the link in the summary of the episode. But it's basically the same 10 words which make up the entire song. All things are working for my good. It's intentional. Never failing. That's it. That's the entire song. All things are working for my good. It's intentional. Never failing. And the way that ties into what I said before about removing ourselves from people who we have to follow up their behavior with, that's just how they are. It being intentional in that it actually is working for your good. Because when you can identify that the people around you who are not growing in their mindset, when you can identify those people, that means that they're actually working for your good as well. Because we all need people around us that help us to reflect and realize that this can be better. It doesn't have to be like this. We need people in our lives that are that's just who they are. We also need people in our lives that, oh, she is different. I wonder why. And then we have those people in our lives that are different and they're willing to share their testimony with us, which can ultimately lead to a breakthrough in something that we may be going through or something or somebody else is going through. And so I didn't realize when I wrote the book Underneath the Hat in 2017, I didn't realize that when I wrote this book that it would lead to a radio show, because Underneath the Hat used to be a radio show first. I didn't know that it would lead to a radio show, and then it would lead to a podcast, and then it would lead to panel discussions and workshops. And it has gone beyond my wildest dreams and expectations. But those song lyrics ring true, that all things are working for my good. It's intentional, never failing. Everything that has happened within these last 5 years of me writing this book, publishing this book, and creating all of these different platforms around this one book have been intentional. Not only has it allowed for me to grow as a person and to evolve as a person, because the Cherie that wrote this book was damaged, broken, hurt, traumatized, afraid, unsure, had low self-esteem, didn't really know what her purpose was. That's the person that wrote this book, that started this podcast, that started that radio station. But I was willing to take a leap of faith and step out of my comfort zone and open my mouth. Anybody that knows me knows I am an introvert. I don't like talking to people. But because of the job that I'm in and where God has placed me in my life at this moment, that is what I'm supposed to do. Now I'm going to let you all in on a secret. I record these episodes as if they were live. I don't edit any of them because I wanted my conversation to seem authentic and be transparent. I didn't want anybody to think that I was putting on a show. I didn't want anybody to think that I was putting myself out there to look like something that I wasn't. And so every episode that you have seen on this podcast has never been edited. It has been raw and uncut and real. And the reason I wanted to do that is because I wanted people to see who Cherie was. And so I record these live, and when I hit end recording on StreamYard, I post it and schedule for it to be broadcast on Saturdays at 10 a.m. I make no editing to any of my episodes because it's intentional. I want you to feel as though we're friends having a conversation or perfect strangers meeting each other and discussing things. And I don't want you to feel as if I'm putting on for the lights, cameras, action. Never have I ever been like that. I'm a behind the scenes girl. And so my approach to this podcast was to make sure that it was raw and uncut. And what you see is what you get. Because people can spot a fake as far as a person's heart and intentions. And I did not want to come across that way over YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or wherever this would be seen on any of the podcast platforms. I wanted to be seen as Cherie. So I have never edited one episode of Underneath the Head podcast in the 4 years I've been doing it. I have never edited one episode. And so because I knew what the purpose of this was, and going through it, God revealing to me what the purpose was and what was the intent behind this, I wanted to make sure that I stayed as grounded and as humble and as real and authentic as I could, because I knew that there was somebody out there that would see this episode or hear this podcast, and what I was saying would help them to go a little bit further and would help them to realize that they were not by themselves. Because writing this book Underneath the Hat, I felt like I was by myself. Going through all the things that I went through, being put in the situation that I was in by my ex, I felt like I was by myself. And once I started writing this book and opening up to people and sharing my testimony, I realized I wasn't alone. I wasn't suffering in silence. Well, I was suffering in silence, but I didn't have to be, because there were people out there who had been through what I had gone through and had survived. And all I had to do was open my mouth. And those very same people have helped me to heal and move forward and get a better understanding as to what I was going through and why I went through it. Sometimes God speaks through people. He's not going to come off a mountain or float on the clouds or transform the sky into this image and speak to you. Sometimes he speaks to you in whispers. Sometimes he speaks to you through people. Sometimes he speaks to you through music. And so I was listening to what his intention was for this book and this podcast. And because of those things, I have been able to change the mindset of me emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically. I am not the same person I was 4 years ago. And I know it was intentional. The things that I went through in this book were intentional. All of it was working for my good. I didn't know it at first. Couldn't see it at first. Didn't want to accept it once God started revealing it to me. But I would not change a thing that I went through because it was intentional. And it made me into the person that I am today. And so I encourage those of you that are out there that are going through things, that feel like you're by yourself, that don't understand why you. And all I can say to you is the same thing I had to say to myself several times. Why not you? I have realized in my walk, in my relationship with God, it's past religion. Because as I've said in one of my episodes, religion versus relationship, the way that I deal with God is no longer about religion, which is all about a set of rules that you follow. That's all religion is a set of rules you follow. But to be in a relationship with somebody, there's going to be some ups and some downs. There's going to be some misunderstandings. There's going to be some great days, some not so great days. And that's what I have with God. I can come to him about anything, talk to him how I need to talk to him. I can get angry. I can get upset. I can be happy. I could cry. I can scream. I can shout. And he still loves me. So I moved from a religion to a relationship. And all of it was intentional. And so going through these things in this book and the things I've discussed on this podcast and on this YouTube channel and at my different workshops have all prepared me for who I am today. And I wouldn't change a thing. So for those of you that are going through it, wondering why not? One thing I have learned is that God does not give us more than we could bear. And it's actually, I want to say this the right way. It's actually comforting to know that God cares enough about you to put all that he puts on you because he knows you can handle it. Now, for those of you who have kids, you know which kid you can give which task to, and based on their strengths and weaknesses, you know which one will be successful in which task. You can't give one kid something to do that you know that the older kid will probably be better at. And that's the same thing with God. We're all his children. He knows our strengths and our weaknesses. He knows how much we can handle. Even when we feel like giving up, he knows how far he can push us. He knows when to pull up on us and when to push us forward. He knows when to carry us and when to let us walk on our own. And so when I sit back and I look at all of the things that I've been through that have broken other people, I get excited about the fact that he cared enough about me and believed enough in me and had enough faith in me to trust me with those types of situations so that I can turn my testimonies into breakthroughs for somebody else. But first I had to open my mouth and share my story and let everybody know that it was intentional. All things are working for your good. May not look like it, but they are. So I want to say thank you for tuning in to one of the last episodes of Underneath the Hat podcast. We have 13 more to go. Our final episode will air on March 18th, 2023. And I'm excited for what God is about to share and the breakthroughs and the testimonies that are going to come forward. I'm excited that you have joined me. Make sure you subscribe and like the page. Check me out on all of the podcast platforms: Anchor, Overcast, Spotify, Apple, Google, Breaker, and Pocket Cast. Also, check out my books, Underneath the Hat, and It's Their Size for a Reason, My Journey Through Infertility. You can find them on Amazon or wherever books are sold. Again, I am so excited for what's coming and for what's next. It's been 4 years with this podcast this past November, and I am so excited for God's intention coming to fruition and for me to listen to what he was telling me. And so I pray that you all listen to the whispers, listen to the songs, listen to those things in your mind that are telling you to do and say things that you don't really want to do. Trust me, that's God speaking. So I ask that you listen and realize that all things are working for your good. It's intentional, never failing. And remember to take care of yourself. Underneath the Hat.